Good afternoon. Welcome to TNC Radio.live. This is the Truckers Network radio show. And now here's your host, Shelley Johnson.
Thank you, Tom. I appreciate that. Yes, this is the Truckers Network radio show on TNC Radio.live, where we offer the news, weather, information, sports, and entertainment our drivers want and need. Owner-operators and trucking companies are always concerned with fuel efficiency and engine life. Compromising on that severely impacts their livelihood. We like to feature experts who can help with information on how to get the most out of a diesel engine. Fast Diesel Fuel Systems is a company that does just that. FAST stands for Fuel Air Separation System and is a combination diesel fuel lift pump and fuel filtration system that improves diesel trucks' fuel mileage, engine performance, and extends the life of diesel injection systems. With us today to talk about the newest advances and things to consider is Brad Extem. He's the owner of Fast Diesel Fuel Systems. Welcome, Brad. Thank you for being back on the show with us today.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
We always appreciate your knowledge. You know, it's so helpful to all of our listeners. There's so many things to talk about. What are some of the newest considerations and issues that drivers are encountering with their fuel injection and engine performance? You know, the engines are evolving so fast with new regulations on zero emissions, and that seems to present challenges that drivers may not be aware of in the care of their engines.
And, I just like to, if you don't mind, I'd like to pick on that zero emissions term because we know that's BS because we know there's no thing, when a car is brand new, it has zero, they say zero emissions, but there's emissions building that car. And if it's a combustion engine, there's less emissions building that vehicle than it is of an EV vehicle. So that just drives me up the wall that people are thinking that there's this vehicle magically appears without any emissions. And you know what? The labor that goes into it, the women and children that are digging in the mines with their fingers and getting those minerals, the minerals that you don't want into your bloodstream, it's just a crock of crap. Excuse my language.
No, you're preaching to the choir here. Tom, you have your opinions on this too.
Yeah, no, you're being very nice about it compared to what I usually say, but we are on the radio, so no, totally agree with you on that, and there's a whole list of all the things that make it. I keep telling people I don't have anything against BEV vehicles. I don't have anything against them. I don't have anything against Santa Claus either. They're both mythological and they both sound great, and they both would be wonderful. I'm sorry, Shelley, I didn't. You may not know about the Santa Claus thing, but anyway,
no.
Yeah, they're both make believe, and I'm sorry, just not there.
You don't believe in the Easter Bunny either, Tom?
Yeah, Easter Bunny, Santa Claus, and BEV.
You know what? Sell it under the correct information and don't BS anyone. And then let us make our decision.
Right. It's all
that's the problem that I have.
We're going down a path now, this magical path that's supposed to take us someplace. And I don't know what's at the end of the path, but it's going to be a big mess. A big freaking mess.
I'm thinking of the Wizard of Oz right now. But
yeah, exactly. Yeah. I don't know what we're going to do when we get there because
let's not get there.
We can't get there. That's the thing. The end of that's what we need. We need a good detour, but I don't know where that's going to come from because the people who are behind the BEV stuff have enough clout now to keep down hydrogen cell or any other cool thing that could be out there. But here's the thing. All right, and I'm not a big fan of the president of the ATA, what's his name, Chris Spear, right? But he pointed out correctly to Congress that that one truck back in 1988 put out more pollution than 60 trucks today. We're on to something. Okay, let us keep doing that. Let us keep getting better and better and better at doing that, rather than trying to retool an entire fleet economy, every car and truck in North America to find out that we can't actually do it.
Tom, I totally disagree with you. I think we should go and support China. China needs to rule us, and we need to give them all the power that we can give them. I don't know why you think you're using logic and reasoning. So
Yeah.
I don't. I'm not going to be around for this.
Yeah. Well, yeah, having OPEC now control all the oil stuff again, like we used to, I feel so much better about that.
Yeah.
We have a lot going on at FAST right now. I have 4 teams out now out on the road, and we've really changed direction of where we're going right now. Usually we go out and we train our dealers, and what the benefits are of FAST, where they can visually see it. We have a 12-foot training area in our toy hauler trailers, and we let people see exactly what people can see at a show. And we educate them. We spend about 45 minutes to an hour and 15 minutes, depending on their interest, and sometimes longer. But right now, we had quite an interesting thing come across our table. And a good friend of mine, Tracy Bogler, called Jeremy Murders, my sales manager, and a good friend of mine. He's been a dealer for me for, I think, 18 years now. And he called him and told him how he's having PACCAR injector failures on the EPA pre-EPA 21 motors, and they're in his 21 PACCARs. And he called me up, or called Jeremy up, and then Jeremy called me up, and I'm going to run over Jeremy here. And he calls me up and he tells me about this injector issue, and they're happening within 1,000 miles on a decent amount of trucks. And I said, well, you know what? I don't think we're going to do anything, because I believe that's a manufacturing defect. Something's not gotten deburred. It's gotten shipped out in quantities, something like that. But I said, let's put a FAST on and see if we can help. I'll put 5 FASTs on. Then he says, well, you know what they're doing is that after they get this injector code and they take it in the shop, they flush the system. I said, well, I wonder what they're flushing it for. Maybe it's that deburring process that they missed, that I'm assuming could be the problem. Then he tells me, well, after they flush them, they put this John Deere additive in. It's like 30 gallons at $30 per tank, $60 per fill up. And that's expensive. Okay. And not like we don't have enough expenses. And I said, really? And we looked into the additive, and I said, now this sets up the ballpark of what FAST does, because air is a lack of lubrication. It allows metal on metal, implosion, Gaussian scoring, and things like that. So, you know what? We put one on a brand new truck and it had less than 1,000 miles on it. And we put one on that truck that had a Nokia injector throwing codes. Well, we went 22,000 miles without any issues on either one of them. So we put 5 more FASTs on Woody Bogler Trucking. And then I have some more units going on Rapid Responses trucks, because they have 17 of them, these trucks that he's had issues with. And he's had us on his other trucks but he didn't put them on for injector issues. He just wanted fuel mileage. And he picked up, the worst case, he picked up about 0.2 of a mile per gallon with the hot rod truck driver. And then the other conservative drivers, they were getting about 0.6 with his PACCARs. But he didn't think of this for the injector problem. And I called him up and I told him what was going on with Woody Bogler and what we were doing. And he was interested. And so we have 5 that went on his trucks. And now we're almost at 30,000 miles with the 2 trucks that we were testing on. Remember, one had bad injectors, and Tracy told us that if we would not have done something, he would have had to replace those injectors. Yes, under warranty, but where are you at when it breaks down? And now what did happen with that, because whenever you put us on, we're just going to prolong the life from that point on. We don't actually send in a repair guy to make that, to rebuild that injector. We're just going to make it last. We're probably going to triple the life at least from that point on. But on these PACCAR injectors, we're immensely raising the life, it looks like. Okay. And I want to be honest also, because everything is pointing in the right direction, but we don't have a ton of them on, but it all points in the direction that this is what I think is going to take to cure it. And so that truck that had the bad injector with a messy injector had to go in. It was throwing some codes again, so they just flushed it. And now it's running great. So this is what we have going on. And this hits right up our alley. We're getting known for basically tripling the life of a fuel injection system.
That's just amazing. I mean, this sounds like it's something that everyone can benefit from. I want to cover more of this. I know that we have to go to break here, but we want to know more. Drivers and owner-operators, this can really extend the life of their engine, solve a lot of headaches, because I'm sure there have been a lot of very unhappy owner-operators and drivers. We're talking fuel systems today with Brad Exton. He's the owner and founder of Fast Diesel Fuel Systems. You're listening to the Truckers Network radio show here on TNCRadio.live. Stay tuned for more coming up.
Five common health hazards truck drivers face. A healthy lifestyle is often overlooked by most truckers. Due to work conditions in the trucking industry, it's difficult for truckers to live a healthy lifestyle. Living on the road makes it hard for truckers to prioritize their health. Truck drivers have limited access to healthy food, lack of sleep, and exercise. Due to their work and living conditions, truck drivers statistically have more health problems. It's important for truck drivers to be aware of the common health hazards they face. To live a long, healthy life, truckers will have to focus on their health and make a conscious effort to be healthy. Sleep apnea. Sleep is crucial for truck drivers. Lack of sleep can make driving dangerous. A study shows that long-haul truck drivers obtain less sleep than the required amount for alertness on the job. Truckers need a good night's sleep to be fully alert and ready to take on the road the next morning. Getting a good night's sleep is crucial for keeping a truck driver alert and productive. Truck drivers travel several hundred miles each day. To reach their destination on time, they'll have to prioritize sleep so they can be alert and ready. Obesity. When you live in a tiny truck cab and drive for 11 hours a day, it becomes increasingly difficult to maintain a healthy lifestyle. As a result, obesity is a terrible problem that American truck drivers face. According to the American Dietetic Association, 86% of truck drivers are obese. Healthy food is hard to come by while driving and working on the road. Truck stops offer greasy, high-calorie food rather than healthy fruits and vegetables. It's important for truck drivers to be conscious of what they eat. There are many other health risks that come with fast food and truck stop food. High blood pressure, also known as hypertension, is a silent killer of both your health and trucking career. A poor diet, smoking, obesity, lack of exercise are causes of high blood pressure. Truckers need to be aware of the causes of high blood pressure and take necessary steps to avoid them. Not only does high blood pressure put your life at risk, it can also disqualify you from driving. Truckers with stage 3 hypertension, that's 180 over 110, are automatically disqualified. Depression. Truck drivers spend a significant amount of time away from home and their loved ones. They also work alone for 11 hours a day. It's not uncommon for truckers to start to develop symptoms of depression. Truck driving's not an easy job. It comes with a lot of stress and anxiety. Depression not only affects a person mentally, it also affects you physically. Depression affects your energy levels and the amount of sleep you get. It can also cause a change in appetite, headaches, and muscle aches. It's important for truck drivers to consider their mental health as well as their physical health. This blog on TNCRadio.live is brought to you by the Truckers Network at app.thetruckersnetwork.net. Join Tom Kelly and the rest of the team each day on the morning grind. Then stay tuned for an encore presentation of last night's Landline Now. Weekdays on TNCRadio.live.
Welcome back to the Truckers Network radio show on TNCRadio.live with Shelley Johnson and Tom Kelly. We're talking fuel systems today with Brad Exton. He's the owner of Fast Diesel Fuel Systems. Brad, you were talking about fuel injectors in our previous segment and the problem you seem to have solved for them. What's happening exactly with these fuel injectors? How is your product helping? I mean, this is something you've definitely piqued our listeners' interest.
Just like I started off with that story of how Jeremy brought it to my attention. And, you know, at first I thought it was a deburring process because the injectors were failing so quick. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, then he's talking about how they flush the system. So, well, it's getting rid of some kind of debris. But mm-hmm. then as soon as they said the additive, what they're doing in my book with what I know is that they're trying to keep two metal surfaces away from one another, just kind of like oil is on a cranking rod.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want the two metal surfaces marrying each other, because then you transfer metal from one surface to another, then you lose your tolerances. And that's what I believe is going on when they put the additive in. They're trying to, and it's a Band-Aid at best from what I'm understanding. And with that, creating that that barrier, that's exactly what we do by removing the air. Now, remember, if you go to a test cell, they only have about 10% air in the fuel, because Caterpillar says there's about 10% air and fuel stationary. And on a stationary supply tank that's sitting on top of a building, you're no longer, you're positively feeding, a net positive suction head to that engine pump. Whenever you put it on your truck, you're sucking the fuel up. Now, whenever fuel is under a vacuum, a liquid under a vacuum, you have vapor. Okay. You start the truck up, you automatically have vapor. Now you have that return fuel going back into the supply fuel, and now you have agitated fuel before you even take off. They don't have that in the test cell. Now you get going down the road, now you have agitation. That's where the majority of your air comes from. So all those things right there contributed to a lack of lubrication. Now, what's interesting, when I talk to someone, and like I'm at the Louisville Truck Show, and I hardly get to talk to anyone with a B model, C model mechanical cat. I never talk to them about increasing the life of their fuel injection system, because those things will last 750,000 plus miles, because the tolerances aren't so tight, because the fuel pressures aren't as high. You might have pop open pressure of 2,500 PSI versus 30,000 plus PSI now in these new common rails. So lubricity, keeping those two surfaces divorced, keeping them, where they're not going on a date, going down the road, is so critical. It's not even funny. And we came across this in the Duramax industry, and it's kind of funny that we're having this meeting, because I don't know if you've ever seen our race boat. We teamed up with Performance Boat Centers out of Lake the Ozarks, and you won't believe this, but they have we've won the offshore championship the last 3 years in a row.
Very cool.
Yes. And Johnny Bauer called me this morning. Well, he texted me late last night looking for a dealer, because he thinks he has injector issues on his Duramax, which has somewhat of the same type of fuel system. But he doesn't have our fuel system on that truck, because on the Duramaxes, you have to have a tune to put us on with our strong motor. Well, we actually have it now. As 2 weeks ago, we have a drop-in unit. So we're putting in a drop-in that uses their pump that's in the tank to do what we accomplished. So we're making it a lot easier to install and bringing the price down, since Biden's kicking our butt. But anyways, I didn't mean to go off on a tangent there, and I can if you want to. But
That's fine.
But you know what? In 180,000 miles on that Duramax, that 21 of theirs that pulls around the race boat, this is their the second. They've already replaced the fuel system once. They think number 5 injector is bad this time. And we're going to take care of that from this point on, because we're going to have the drop-in units, which we already shipped to their place while they were gone, for those 2017 and up Duramaxes. But you know what? We're getting Duramaxes going well over 1 million miles, and that's on a pickup truck.
Wow.
Now we're running into this same thing. Now here's what's interesting, and I was thinking about this. These fleets that have the Packard trucks, that I'm talking to you about 2 of them right now, and we're going to take care of that issue, but some of them are dumping them already. They don't know that there's a fix out there. And we're getting hold of some of them, and I believe we're going to be on about 5 more real soon fleets. And we're doing this with a money back guarantee, or we're not even charging them up front, because that's how much we believe in it. But the ones that are dumping it, just think of where those trucks are going to go. They're going to go to secondhand fleets, okay, that buy the trucks. They're going to get a discount, but they're going to have the problem there, or the owner operator. And what really sucks about that is, I used to be an owner operator, and when you have one truck feeding one family, when that truck's down, you ain't making nothing.
That's right.
Wow. At least these fleet owners have other trucks making them money to help, expand that, spread that expense across other, a whole company.
Is this something new, what's happening here? I mean, this sounds really bad, and obviously owner-operators and companies need to reach out to you to solve the problem.
we've never had anything like this that we could just put on and almost prove to someone, you know what, let me back up. When we put it on an owner operator, a lot of times when we put the fast on, they can tell a difference in how the engine sounds and how much smoother it is right there.
Mm-hmm.
Then they have to go do the fuel mileage runs. And then they have to take into account the variables because, you know, if you do it in the summer where the variables are pretty consistent, you'll see the increases unless you're hot riding the truck, because we actually give more power and we allow you to burn more fuel if you just drive with your foot down, okay? But we're going to get you there a little bit faster. But there's so many variables in it. You know, when we talk to people about injector life, oh yeah, this is what we do, and it takes a time for them to tell. And just like I was on the radio once with another company, and they had a guy that was a common customer between us two, and he called me back after the show, and it never dawned on him. He'd gone through like 13 injectors in 5 years on his 3406 E model Cat. After he put the fast on, in 5 years, he had not gone through one, but it didn't dawn on him. This is the first time, this is I guess craziest that I've ever seen it, where there's injector failures within the first 1,000 miles.
That's terrible.
And then if the driver doesn't put additive in, it's going to fail. The additive is a Band-Aid. And that we've never had this kind of, and I hate to call it an opportunity, but this is an opportunity for us to shine. And that's what we're doing.
You're providing a solution. This is excellent. It's that's scary. You have to baby your fuel injectors. That's not something people want to have to do. That's an extra expense. And
yeah, it's $60 a fill up.
Yeah. So you're providing a solution that's going to save people money and give them confidence, because, I mean, this is their livelihood. For those who aren't familiar, what do fast products do? How does your system work?
Okay, what it consists of, like you said before, a lot of people look at us as just an over-glamorized filter because we have filters and we have a pump.
Mm-hmm.
But that's part of the process. What we do is we actually filter the air out. And what got us going on to this is that we were having issues with our Cummins, and it was many years ago. And they kept trying to fix the problem, and I'm going to shorten the story up. They kept trying to fix the problem. And we'd go in there, they'd do it under warranty, we'd leave, it'd have the same problem. And it was inconsistent power and fuel mileage. And then we finally asked them what they were looking for. They said, looking for air in the fuel. And we found out so many issues as why they don't find air in the fuel because of how they look for it. And we said, well, what about when you take the filter off, it's never full to the top on this top of the fuel filter of the fuel on a spin-on filter. Oh, it's supposed to be that way. Well, called the guy at Cummins by the name of Harold Webb. He shared a service topic with us from 1965, and this can be found on our website, and it talks about why and where all that air comes from. So we coupled it up with a CAT. We found that CAT article later, and why that filter is not full when you take it off, and what damages that air causes. So between our filters, our pump, and our porting, we filter that air out. And we've made it so much easier to install in the semis because we used to have a dedicated return line. Now we put pure fuel, virtually pure fuel to the engine. We have a little bit of trickling fuel going back, and that's where we get rid of the air. So now we can tie it in with the engine return without creating any back pressure to the injectors, which is, you don't want back pressure.
Makes sense. I would say that this is something that everyone should consider. You are responsible for extending the lifespan of so many engines, aren't you?
We are. And one of my customers, and I'm at the fuel shop and I'm filling up, and I'll ask someone, my first question is, I'll say, how long are you going to keep your truck? They tell me 2 years. Well, now with a PACCAR, if they say 2 years, I said, you need this. But if they say 2 years and it's a pickup truck or whatever, and I can't help them out with cold weather and they don't have a tune on it, you know what? I say, I'll just talk to them about something else. I talk to telephone poles. But if they say I'm going to keep it till I run the wheels off of it, and I say, you know what? I'll triple the life of your fuel injection system right here.
That's huge.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
And we have the numbers to back it up, which I'll share with you.
We do have to go to break. I think that if we maybe talk about that in our next segment, because I know that the drivers definitely want to hear some of these percentages and numbers, because that'll get them even more excited, because it sounds like you're here to save the day. And drivers are looking for any kind of help they can get, especially with the economy and all the crazy pricing they've been dealing with. We're talking fuel systems today with Brad Exton. He's the owner of Fast Diesel Fuel Systems. You're listening to the Truckers Network radio show on tncradio.live. Stay tuned for more coming up.
This blog on tncradio.live is brought to you by the Truckers Network at app.thetruckersnetwork.net. Common mental health issues truck drivers face. Every day the roads are full of heavy-duty trucks. Trucks are responsible for nearly 80% of America's freight. Being a truck driver is not an easy job, and it's not for everyone. Trucking can be hard on an individual, both physically and mentally. Suffering from mental health can put truck drivers in a dangerous situation. To safely operate a heavy-duty vehicle, drivers need to be physically and mentally healthy. Here are 4 common mental health issues that truck drivers face. Why mental health issues are common in truck drivers. Truck driving is a demanding job and can be very stressful at times. A stressful work environment leads to anxiety and depression. In addition to a stressful work environment, truck drivers spend a lot of time alone in their truck. Constantly being alone can affect one's mental health. Although many truck drivers suffer from mental health issues, some are afraid to get help because they fear losing their job. The Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, that's FMCSA, requires drivers to be in good health before receiving or renewing a commercial driver's license. The trucking industry is predominantly male. A study by RAHM states that men are less likely to get treatment for their mental health than women. It's important for drivers to take care of their mental health as much as their physical health. Common mental health issues in truck drivers. Depression. Depression is an illness that affects you mentally, physically, and emotionally. It's very common in the trucking industry. Being alone and away from friends and family contributes to depression. It's important to know the difference between feeling down and having depression. If you feel that you're experiencing depression, seek out help. Depression is serious and can affect your ability to operate your truck. Anxiety. Because of how stressful trucking can be, anxiety is very common for drivers. This is especially true for new drivers. Many experienced drivers have reported having anxiety and panic attacks while on the road. It's important to know the difference between new driver anxiety and generalized anxiety. If you're often experiencing anxiety while working, take the necessary steps to get help. Chronic sleep disturbances. A good night's rest is crucial to truck drivers. Not having enough sleep can make it dangerous to operate a heavy-duty vehicle. Because of a truck driver's living and work situation, good sleep can be difficult. A NCBI study reports that 20 to 28.6% of truck drivers have an unspecified sleep disorder, and 27.5% of truck drivers are diagnosed with insomnia. Sleep is extremely important for your mental and physical health. If you're experiencing problems sleeping while trucking, consider seeking professional help. Loneliness. Truck drivers spend many days and weeks isolated in their truck. According to Business Insider, nearly a third of drivers say being alone is a significant issue affecting their mental health. This blog on tncradio.live has been brought to you by the Truckers Network at app.thetruckersnetwork.net.
Hello, everybody. This is Todd Dewey from Ice Road Truckers on the History Channel, and I love to listen to tncradio.live.
Welcome back to the Truckers Network radio show on tncradio.live. I'm Shelley Johnson with Tom Kelly, and we're talking fuel systems today with Brad Exton. He's the owner of Fast Diesel Fuel Systems. Brad, you said you had some percentages in the last segment that you can share with us on how you've improved engine performance with your products.
What I'm going to share with you is some testimonials from other people, okay? Because one of the things is I like shooting straight forward. You know, if I BS you, we'll have a drink in our hands and it'll be so over the top, you know it. But when it comes to taking money and helping people, I want people to shoot me straight, and that's why I expect them to do the same to others. and I don't want your money if I can't help you. And, just like that other fleet, the rapid response, a friend of mine, Rick, he knew that we were helping out with fuel economy, but he didn't know about the benefits towards his injector problem that he was having, and he didn't relate the two. And on his low side, he's picking up about 0.2 of a mile per gallon. On the conservative drivers, he's picking up about 0.6. And I've been telling people all along, there's a solid 0.4 of a mile per gallon to be had on Class 8 trucks. Pickup trucks is different. We get larger than that. But I guarantee zero, because just like I said earlier, when we're taking air out of fuel and putting fuel in place of it, we just gave you the capability to burn more fuel, if you think about it. But if you're going to drive like you want to make money, and some people do make money going, when they're hauling heavy and things like that, where our increases aren't as much, or just getting there will make them more money. But we have that. We have another fleet that was there out of Tampa and Indianapolis. And they had a dedicated route for dedicated fuel stops. So they knew what they burned even at the fuel stops. And they could see that. And they were getting a solid about 6 to 7 tenths of a mile per gallon increase. And they're the ones also giving us a lot of numbers on Volvo injectors. They were telling me that normal Volvo injectors would go about 400,000-ish, okay? It's not you go to 400,000 miles and they quit, 400,000 miles and they just quit. But they said 400,000-ish is where they usually need to be rebuilt. Well, with us on there, they were going 1.3 to 1.5 million miles.
Wow.
Okay. And it all makes sense. When you go to our website and you study, there's an area in there now. I believe it's live as of today. I'd have to ask Jake, and he's listening, if it's live. And we have a lot of fine tuning, but we finally released it. But we're getting the information out, and it is what can FAST do for me? And we're releasing a lot of the documents. And just like I was at an underground mining seminar as a guest speaker, and I'm telling them about how lubrication, keeping the two metals from one another from rubbing, causing galling and scoring, implosion, cavitation, things like that. And we were talking about how the air allows the plunger to come down and pop the tip off, because when there's fluid there, it creates a shock absorber. And you can see this on our website. That's what's really cool. But then this chemist stopped me right in the middle of me speaking up there. And he says, he wants to bring something to my attention. So he says, if you have air, fuel, and high pressure coming out of that orifice of the injector, making that very fine mist that you call atomization. When you get that mixture right, he says, you have a cutting torch. I said, that's interesting. So I called an engineer that I know at Caterpillar, and he confirmed that. So what we're finding out is that over a period, with those injectors, you start off small, with an orifice smaller, they're precisely machined out where the fuel comes out. And over a period of time, they get eroded, and they get bigger and bigger. So it turns into more like a garden hose, right, coming out in a spurt, not as a very fine mist. Yes, it's still a mist in our eye, but we can't see the difference. But it opens up and it loses the efficiency over a period of time. And that's why one of the reasons you replace injectors. Well, that's what we help out with. You cannot argue the physics behind us. If they do, the people are idiots. The only thing that you can argue is the return on investment, how long it will take.
I would say that you've got some pretty impressive stats there, and certainly testimonials.
They are, and they're true, because we don't just take one and say, oh, you know what, it sounds great, let's run with it. I want to hear it over and over, because when I put my name on it and say this like I am on the air right now, I don't want someone hunting me down in a truck stop, because I travel a lot. And you know what? I run into a lot of customers, because I even have a pair of underwear with FAST written on them. Embroidered in them. But no, I have FAST. I probably don't wear another FAST shirt unless I'm out on a date with my wife. But I have FAST shirts. All my vehicles are labeled with FAST on it, and we get stopped often. And it's neat hearing the stories that how we've helped people. Mm-hmm. And we go to shows. So.
How did FAST get started? I'm sorry, it just popped into my head and I interrupted. Sorry about that.
Oh, no, that happens on the phone, doesn't it? It got started because we had a problem with horsepower and fuel mileage.
Okay.
And you know what? We still help out horsepower, but we were going in and Cummins in our downtime, and it's almost like the PACCAR thing. And the downtime was killing us. The shop, visiting the shop was free, but we'd have the problem when we left. And then when we found out they were looking for air in the fuel, okay, they were looking for loose lines, kinked fuel lines, flapper valves in the fuel line. They were just looking for the normal stuff that can allow air into your fuel system. They weren't looking at the fuel, the cause of the problem being the fuel itself. And then there's even a sight glass out there from Caterpillar. You pull your truck into a shop, okay? You go in, you tell them what problems it's having. It's sitting outside. It takes a while to get the truck inside. So, you might leave it overnight, you do whatever. The mechanic goes, grabs the truck, pulls it inside, shuts it off. Then you put a sight glass on it. If he this way, he's going to look for it. Then he primes the truck up, then he starts it up, and he looks for air. The only air you're really going to find there is the air that's leaking, bad fittings, a restriction, a really bad restriction. And there might be a couple other things, but you're not going to find the sloshing. You're going to find the hot return fuel aerating the fuel, which sloshes it from that. You're not going to find the roads, the agitated fuel from the sloshing going down the road. You're also not going to find out that when you go up in altitude, you increase your vacuum because you lose atmospheric pressure pushing down the fuel. And when you increase vacuum, like a dirty filter does, and lack of altitude, you lose performance that way.
Sure.
So we're just keeping it consistent like it is in the test cell, but removing that 10%, but keeping it consistent throughout the day, no matter what your fuel level is, what the fuel temperature is, and how much agitation has been pushed to.
I would imagine you've really expanded the life of an engine. That's huge.
What? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm excited.
Mm-hmm.
We balance out that engine because we take some engines and we took a Detroit 60 series. And this guy was testing me and he hooked up a computer. And this is years ago, okay? So my memory's a little bit off on this. But the RPMs at an idle was jumping around about 15 to 20 RPM on a digital tachometer. And the injector pulse width reading was jumping from 3.8 to 4.2 milliseconds of how long that it would take to load the fuel that it needed for that idle. And that showed up in the RPM jumping around, okay?
Mm-hmm.
After he put us on there, it idled on 600 and it cleaved to 601. And the injector pulse width reading stayed at 3.8. And didn't move. A diesel engine, fuel injection came about for two reasons: to inject a predetermined amount of fuel at a predetermined time, and air, kind of throws that off, kind of like Biden did Trump's economy.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So just think of air like Biden. It's a disease because you want air through your turbo. Okay, that's where you want air to feed into your cylinder. You do not want it in, just like Biden, you don't want them in your bank account or your policies.
Right.
Give him ice cream, put him in the back room, and let him drool all over himself.
Makes sense.
Yes, that's good.
You've got some interesting analogies there, Brad.
Oh, we can go into politics really deep if you want to. I got to have dinner with Trump once.
Oh, did you?
Wow.
That's
Yeah.
interesting. Wow.
And if he would speak like he did when he was not on camera, there's 100 of us in there because we're all helping him. We're giving him money. But when he wasn't on camera, he's a very funny, he's a very likable guy. But his gloves, you put him on camera, his gloves are on, or his gloves are off, and he's ready to MMA you.
Right.
But he loves our country.
No doubt.
Yep, absolutely. Yep. Well, I want to talk more about fuel systems and everything that you're products do, Brad, and how people can get more information. You've got some really important facts and maybe some tips for our drivers. So we definitely want to come back and discuss that. You're listening to the Truckers Network radio show on tncradio.live. Stay tuned for more coming up.
Tips for starting your own trucking company. If you want to start your own trucking company, there are many things to consider. The Truckers Network has put together a list of tips for starting your own trucking company that'll help you get going in the right direction. Have a business plan. Pick a name for your trucking company. Perform a trademark search online to make sure your name's available. Select your target market. Targeting the right market is critical when starting a trucking company. Becoming a special carrier can help you owavoid some competition. It could also help you increase your sales opportunities. Make some important decisions. Come up with your rates. Decide if you want to be an owner-operator, and will you do short hauls or long hauls. Know the legal requirements. You must have a valid CDL, commercial driver's license, and if you're going to be an owner-operator, you'll need to follow the terms of the FMCSA. That's the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. And you must use United States Department of Transportation and Motor Carrier Authority numbers. That's the USDOT and MC. The USDOT number tracks your safety records and regulatory compliance. The MC number, also known as Operating Authority, classifies your trucking company and the cargo you can carry. To get these numbers, you'll need to register your trucking business with the FMCSA. Get trucking insurance and register with the UCR system after getting your USDOT and MC numbers. Apply for an IFTA. That's an International Fuel Tax Agreement permit. This permit allows your business to get one fuel license, and the rule says you can file fuel tax returns 4 times a year in the state your business is based in. There are several more permits and forms I didn't mention that you'll need based on where you plan to drive and the goods you intend to carry. The FMCSA is a great place to learn more. Funding your trucking business. In most cases, starting a new trucking company takes between $10,000 and $30,000. Keep in mind that this doesn't include buying a semi-truck, only paying the down payment on one. There are many factors that go into the decision of whether or not to buy a new truck or a used truck. If you decide to get a used truck, be sure to thoroughly inspect it, and I would even recommend having a diesel mechanic take a look. Insuring your business assets. A trucking insurance company that specializes in commercial vehicles is the best place to turn to. You can also consult the FMCSA to gain some understanding of what type of trucking insurance is right for you. Another great source of information is trucking forums and social media communities on Facebook. Prepare your truck for the road. Decals displaying your USDOT number, the company's registered name, and your radio frequency ID tags must be displayed on your truck. Don't forget license or international registration plates. You'll also need to install an FMCSA registered and compliant electronic logging device. It's called an ELD. These steps are just a brief overview of starting your own trucking company. The Truckers Network has some great articles that you can read to learn more about trucking in general. And when you become a member, you'll get some great discounts to help you save money so more of your profit stays in your pocket.
Don't forget, you can hear all of our TNC Radio primetime shows again on our podcasts. Just go to tncradio.live/podcasts or search for tncradio.live wherever you listen to podcasts. Welcome back to the Truckers Network radio show on tncradio.live. I'm Shelley Johnson with Tom Kelly. We're talking fuel systems today with Brad Exton. He's the owner of Fast Diesel Fuel Systems. Brad, you said you're going to be releasing a new product. So I thought that maybe I'd let you talk about it and give us maybe a sneak peek at what it does.
We've been working on this for about 3 years, and my son Spencer has really taken it over, and he's been the guiding force and the brains behind it. I'm more the money guy. And we had some things go on, and they're having major issues with the EGR cooler, the valving in the EGR system. And then after it goes through, into the EGR, it not only clogs the filters and plugs the valving and coats the valving, it goes in and washes your cylinder where you lose combustion. Cylinder pressure over a period of time, and then that soot goes in and gets in your oil, and it's gritty, so it causes excessive wear. And we've been able to figure out how to take 85% of the soot out before it goes in the cooler and causes the problems of clogging it, choking up your valves and washing your cylinder, to the point to where we've done some oil analysis, not one after another on the same engine, but we lower the soot in the oil by about 40%.
Wow. That's huge.
Yes. Yes. I'm really excited about this because, with the FAS, we've always had to explain that air is dirt, air is a debris. People don't think of air as a debris. They think it's just as air, even if they don't think of air. And then we have to sell the benefits and convince them and show them and do this magic show, man. And it's really real. But people understand EGR systems getting plugged with basically dirt. That's what soot is. And we're able to take it out. We have our newest products being released on the Duramaxes in about 5 months. The Fords after that, and then the Cummins on the pickup side after that. And then what we're going to do is we're getting that side going, and then we're rolling into the semis.
Okay.
And it is just a really neat thing, and something I'd like to back up with since we have some time.
Sure.
I run additive. I run additive in my fuel. Even though FAS increases lubricity at least 10%, probably more like 20-ish, I still believe in these new common rail systems, you cannot have enough lubrication.
Yeah.
Right. I wanted to ask you about that because, as our listeners know, we do a lot of stuff with Hot Shot Secret and Steve Summers and the Overnight Show. And so I was curious, if I take what you're doing along with, the additives from, Golden Eagle and other places too. I'm not saying they're the only ones, but, is there a good relationship here, or is it too much and it's going to create an issue? So you're saying go for it, but, do it all.
I would do that. I just did it. The only thing that I don't like about additives is because you have to remember to do it, and I forget to do it, and trying to get fleet drivers to do it over and over and over. The FAS is like an additive in a bottle, but you know what? I just put fuel in my truck earlier, and I put additive in it also.
Okay.
And you do both, and gosh, it'd be interesting to see. I mean, if they did some really incredible testing there, if you do this right, okay, the upfront expense might seem a little bit higher, but over the course of the engine, and the part that the part that's always hard to prove is how long would your engine have lasted if you hadn't done these things, right? But at the same time, over time, this has to more than pay for itself many, many times.
Let me ask you this. Everyone knows that with a dirty filter, you lose horsepower and you lose fuel mileage, right?
Of course. Right.
You take that dirty filter off, put a clean one back on, horsepower and fuel mileage goes up, correct?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
But you still, let's say, and I know the numbers like on the 3406E, I believe a clean filter is around 4 inches of vacuum and a dirty filter is around 7 to 9 inches of vacuum.
Okay.
So we go from 7 to 9 inches of vacuum to 4 inches of vacuum. We only changed that by about 4 inches, 5 inches of vacuum, but we gain performance. What would happen if we got rid of those 4 inches of vacuum and went to the test cell performance? If we gain from a dirty to a clean, would we not gain yet again from a clean to a positive flow in the test cell?
Right.
In the test cell, there's still 10% air and fuel. What would happen if we remove that? It's just like having air in your brake lines in your car on a hydraulic brake, or if you have air in your hydraulic bucket on your dump truck. You go and you push on, your car slows down in front of you, you go to push on your brakes, and if there's air in there, you better be real quick at pumping that brake.
Right.
It's throwing it out of time, and you shorten your burn up, and when you shorten a burn up, the fuel does not distribute across the top of the piston like it should, and it gives it a shorter time to burn, so you burn less of you get less BTUs out of that fuel, and then what happens? You don't burn all the fuel, so you put some raw fuel out the stack. And if you don't have a DPF, you get to see that as in smoke. And we've seen where we reduce opacity in the underground mines, and we've seen it where we reduce it immensely, okay? But now that there's a DPF in the way, now you have to go into regen sooner. We cut regens in about half. That's why, see, you can go to a court of law and be asked about what we do in all kinds of different directions, and you still come up with the basic principles of hydraulic systems. And the number one contaminant in the hydraulic system per Milwaukee School of Engineering is air.
Okay.
It's
Makes total sense.
It's all about the air.
All about the air. Yeah.
So it's kind of simple.
Yes, it really is. And it's really cool that you've got this product. Where do people find your product? Can they reach out, ask any questions?
And those guys who are really with the PACCARs and having the injector issues, give us a call. Go to fastride.com. That's FASS, Fuel Air Separation System, fastride.com. There's a new section that's going to be up there tonight, and it's called What Can Fast Do For Me? And it breaks it down into different segments. And it's a little bit rough right now, but we're going to go through and polish it. But you're going to see the documents that I've been talking about throughout the different areas. And then we're going to even show you what real water separation is. There's a truck on there, and we had a 2019, and I might be wrong about the miles, but we only had like 1,000 or 2,000 miles on that truck. I hooked it up to a cylinder full of fuel, about maybe 2 gallons of fuel, ran it out of that right into the CP4, which there's a lawsuit going on because the CP4 is kind of like the PACCAR. The problem, and there's going to be a civil lawsuit on the PACCAR. I can almost guarantee it. And we took it, ran it out of that, and while I had the truck running, I showed how well our water separator removes water and then basically dams up if it ever gets full. My son poured like a gallon of water into that, and it shut the engine down. Okay, but you know what? Bill, one of our outside reps up in Idaho, he's down in Arizona when he did the video last week. He is still driving that truck with the CP4 that's known for problems with 90,000 miles on that truck, and nothing's been done to the fuel injection system.
Okay.
We put our money where our mouth is.
Yes,
sometimes we're not the brightest sometimes, but
I'd say you're very bright. You've got some very cool products here. What is your website again, just in case people weren't listening?
It's fastride.com.
Mm-hmm.
And
excellent.
The 800 number is 888-POWER-HP, I believe.
Okay.
We got our wokeness grade on our website now. You can go to the bottom of it. You can see our wokeness grade.
Okay.
So
it's fastride.com. We're coming up to the top of the hour. I hate to interrupt you, Brad. This has been so helpful to our drivers. They definitely need to check out your website. We've been talking with Brad Exton, owner of Fast Diesel Fuel Systems. I really appreciate you being with us. You've been listening to the Truckers Network radio show here on TNCRadio.live. Stay tuned for our great primetime lineup coming up this evening here on TNCRadio.live. Thank you for listening to another great interview on TNCRadio.live and the Truckers Network radio show. All of the material you hear on TNCRadio.live on our website, our broadcasts, or our podcasts are copyrighted. There can be no distribution without the express consent of TNCRadio.live and its partners. For inquiries, write us at info@tncradio.live. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast of the Truckers Network radio show.